Welcome to Real Talk on Talent, a human resources podcast where we talk about talent acquisition, recruiting, and all things hiring.
Hi, Hilary.
Hi, Dina.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Are you excited to be back today?
I am. I'm having a hard time, though, keeping a straight face and actually thinking about what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Because you're hilarious.
Why, thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Full stop.
I would say I try, but it comes naturally to me. Ba-dum-bum.
I think what I love about you is it's so unexpected and yet it's so on brand.
You know,
Like the way that you mash up sayings and it's correct in the Dina way.
I got to tell you something. Idioms, is that what they're called?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't get them right. I personally...
You can't even remember what they're called.
Well, there we go. I think you're really funny, Hilary.
Thank you.
I think you're a pretty funny person.
Honestly,
you make
though,
me chuckle.
this is why we are sitting here today, is because unfortunately
People think we're funny.
people think, and to be clear,
We don't know if it's good or bad.
I don't know if it's correct or not, but anyway,
Yeah.
I just feel like
Or maybe entertaining is probably like, maybe funny is here, but entertaining.
maybe it's because our shame levels are a little bit lower
Could
than
be.
everybody
It
else.
could be,
And it's
yeah.
like, hey, go dance in front of a camera. And
Yeah.
we're like, sure.
Why not? When you've got moves like these, you shouldn't hide them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
say, actually, this is going to sound like a weird pivot,
Uh-huh.
but I'm going to bring us to our point.
Okay, let's hear it. Good.
We would not have this interaction
Uh-huh.
if we were not sitting in the office today.
Oh, Hilary.
You like that?
Dang.
I'm not wrong.
No, you are not wrong. I mean, flawless transition.
I wouldn't say flawless, but thank you.
I mean, I thought it was pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Are we
We're
talking
talking about return to office.
return to office? Bum, bum, bum.
This is a very
Yeah.
controversial yet brave topic
It
for us.
is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's set the stage. Dina, will you set
Okay.
the stage for us? Return to office in the world.
Return to
Whatever that
office
means to you,
in
set us up.
the world. Okay.
Yeah.
So we all know COVID happened. COVID changed everything. Everybody went work from home. Slowly, there were people coming back in the office. What we're finding right now is a lot of organizations are hybrid, not
Yep.
hybrid. But what we're also finding,
Coming into the office would be a lot more fun if there was fresh bread every day.
totally concur.
But continue.
What we're finding most recently is a lot of organizations are mandating a return to office.
And especially like a full 5-day
full
a week.
5-day a
Yep,
week. Yeah.
yep.
And then now there are other organizations pushing back against that, like Spotify saying, we trust you guys. We're fully remote.
Oh,
We're-
listen.
I think remote first is their
Spotify
term.
didn't just say we were fine being remote. Like, they came out swinging. And
mean-
I thought it was great.
They had like the largest billboard ever.
Is that what to say? Our employees are not children?
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's one way to.
There we go.
I want to say make a plug for employer branding on that.
Okay.
That was a very specific choice.
Yes.
Because honestly, Spotify wasn't doing that to talk to their employees, but they were doing that so they were known as like that kind of a company. But return to office is an interesting one.
It is.
How do you want to approach this? Pros and
So-
cons of in office, remote, coming back in.
You know what I would love to hear?
Yeah.
I would love to hear about your experiences
Mm-hmm.
working in the office, working remotely.
Yes.
And then kind of tell us that, because what I want to hear about is how that impacted your career journey.
Oh, that's good. Okay, I'm going to make this really quick.
Okay.
So, my very first job out of college was a startup, and in office, totally standard. I am a pre-COVID employee, meaning like my first job was pre-COVID, because there is now this interesting cultural distinction of like if you got your first professional job after COVID, completely different. So anyway, so I was in the office, and then and this was back west, and then my husband got into school here in Florida. And long story short, I was allowed to work remotely. I was the only remote employee. They put me on contractor status, and I did that for a year and hated it. I didn't know anyone in Florida. I was working at home, and they didn't know how to use me because I was not, it was like I was.
It wasn't a common thing.
Yeah, and it was like, and I also realized I didn't set myself up correctly. What I should have done is leaned in and gotten a bunch of projects to work on for people. But instead, I just kind of was like, all right, what am I doing for you guys? So just that's one takeaway that I had is I should have leaned in more to say, give me work that I can do as opposed to just waiting for work to come my way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it wasn't necessarily bad for my career, but it didn't do anything good for me. Okay. And then when the company started to struggle, my role was the first to be eliminated.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so it was a lot more at risk. Then found a local job, went back into the office full time, did that. And then my job after that, I was there for about 5 or 6 years, was fully remote. And this was before COVID.
Okay.
So this would have been, I think, 2017, 2018. And the company was primarily remote, just to begin with. Okay. They were a global company, really leaned into it. And so they'd had a really good structure for building a remote culture. And I really struggled. I loved the people I worked with. I liked the work. But it was really hard for me to feel like I was building relationships, despite the fact that I did. Yeah. It just, I didn't love it. Yeah. Did it for a year. And then that's when I came to Human because I was excited about being back in the office and like seeing people again. Yeah. And then a year later, or 6 months after I started Human, COVID hit. Okay. And then we did COVID, and then I was remote. So I give that background because I think that for me, when I look at my career, I've learned a lot from the remote experience about how to engage teams, about how to position myself, about how I work, about how I need my space. But I also know that there are things I would not be in the position that I am today if I didn't have the in-office experience.
Yeah. I think you said a couple of really important other things. So I think one of the biggest questions is, are you set up for success in a remote role? And is your organization built for remote work?
That, I think, is a really great question. And I think this is why so many companies are pushing for return to office, because I don't think anyone really knows the answer to that.
Yeah.
And I think it also is really contingent on what kind of work you're doing.
So completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree. So I think that some companies are more akin to working remotely.
Such as,
technical
Yeah.
companies,
Yep.
you know, where maybe perhaps you have a lot of individual contributors who are kind of working on siloed projects, things like that.
Or the projects are like, okay, we collaborate on what needs to get done. Now people go do your part and we'll come back together.
Yeah. I do think that if you are a person younger in your career or new to a particular career, I struggle to figure out how you can develop in that particular career if you're not in person with somebody.
Yeah, and that's what I think is part of what's making return to office so controversial right now.
Yeah.
Is that the case? Like, are younger people struggling to get the mentorship and the growth and the exposure because of a remote workforce, just inherent structure? Or because the people with experience in leadership who would provide that mentorship don't know how to open up, don't know how to mentor remotely, or the company hasn't figured out the right way to create those organic intersections or inorganic. Like, we're going to actively create these intersections.
Yeah. So that's, I may be jumping the gun here.
Please
do. I think that if you are a company like Spotify that says we are remote first, you need to make sure you have all of that stuff figured out. You need to make sure
Do you, though?
I mean, I think...
Walk me through this, because I'm not disagreeing. I'm just curious about...
I mean, I feel like you are shortcutting your employees if you don't have ways, a proven way for them to grow and develop in a remote setting. Yeah. If you don't have proven ways for people to collaborate, share best practices, mentor in a remote setting. So that's why, to me, like, hybrid is kind of just the default best model.
I think hybrid can have two definitions.
You're right.
So you have hybrid in the sense of, like, at Human, we come into the office a couple days. We're in the office 3 days. You're not in the office 2 days a week. And that's for people who live within the radius of one of our offices, right? But then we have half of our workforce is fully remote. So you have the two definitions. Either you are part-time in the office or part of your workforce is in the office and part is not, right? And I think that sometimes the like, oh, you can work from home 2 days a week, but you're in the office 3 days is, I sometimes feel like it's a consolation prize.
Okay.
Like, oh, in order to retain employees, we have to let them work from home.
Okay, yeah, I get where you're going with that.
Which there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that I think it misses the opportunity to see the value of the remote experience.
Okay. Well, and you're 100% correct, because one thing here at Human that we always struggle with is making sure that our remote employees are truly engaged and that they are getting all of the same opportunities that our internal or in-office employees are having. And that goes back to my...
And vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you make sure that regardless of if you are remote, in person, whatever it is, that opportunities are available consistently regardless of location?
Yeah, and my opinion on that is that we talk a lot about culture and like culture-based hiring and defining your culture and the behaviors that go into your core values, whatever that may be. But also defining how does that translate across different work locations. So what is the expectation for a remote employee? What is the expectation for an in-office employee? What are the pros and cons? What are the benefits and trade-offs? And as a company, can you be confident with that? So for example, if you compare Spotify to like Amazon, I feel like if Amazon had been better able to clarify their own reasoning, they gave reasons for why they were forcing people in, but the story that comes out is like, they're just trying to like tighten their workforce, or like the management is not willing to learn how to engage remotely. Whereas if it's a company, you say, okay, can we provide the right experience, remote, hybrid, or in person? And if you can't,
that's the question. Yeah. To me, that's the question. Can we provide the right and consistent experience as well? Okay. So if you were to start a company, Hilary's company, I'm going to be your first applicant. What are you mandating? What does your work schedule look like?
So for me, I really like what we have at Human, where we have an office. We all come in on the same days so that we can have meetings in person. We can engage with each other, whatever. But those days I work from home, those are my head down, get things done, like bust it out. There's less distraction for me, and it's a lot more productive in the individual work sense. And that helps keep my work balanced in when do I engage with people, when do I have meetings, and when do I have space where I'm less likely to have someone come knock on my door. And I love that. I will say I think it's really important to make sure that hybrid approach gives an opportunity to include remote people, because no city is going to have the best talent for all jobs in one place. And I think it's in Hilary Co. that we've now founded.
Okay.
I have to have space for talent that doesn't live within driving distance.
And what's your business again? Will you remind me?
I sell fancy things to fancy people.
Okay, I thought just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, it's very exclusive and very expensive.
Okay, yes.
So thus, you are actually my number one customer. So you can't be an employee.
This podcast has gone viral.
Sorry. Okay, what about you?
So yeah,
Dina and Co. has just founded.
Dina and Co.
How do you approach it?
Okay, so first of all, we rehabilitate wild animals.
Oh my gosh,
that's what we do at Dina and Co.
See, this has been founded already, though.
Yeah, no, it has.
Yeah,
it has. No, so I like the hybrid schedule. So
like the in office at home.
Yeah, for clarification, in office and then home a couple days. I do think, just from a mental health perspective, going to the office is good. I think for me personally, I like having to get dressed up. I like having to put my best foot forward. I like seeing people in person. When we were home from COVID, it was great wearing sweatsuits for the first 6 months. But let me tell you something. After a while, I'm like, I need to get up and get dressed and go and see people.
I really thrived living in my little cave. I thrived.
So no, I'm a big fan of kind of, same reason.
How would you do the non-local piece?
So I
Would you hire people who don't live close enough to the office to come in?
I mean, I struggle with that. If I had, yes, because I do believe, like, I mean,
I was going to say most of your team
my team is truly remote. Yeah. But I guess it depends on what it is that we're doing, because I do think that for people who are more junior in their career, I really want them more hands-on, more working closely in person type space.
Yes, and you know what? It inspired the thought, and maybe this is part of the pain of why return to office is an easy answer, because I completely agree with you. And I bring people in to the office as often as I can. Like our true remotes, is what we call people who don't live within the proximity of an office. It requires the business to invest in, like, if that person to person experience is that valuable, then I have to invest in making that happen. And that is a huge financial change. Because if on your budget, you're just used to people driving themselves into the office, then there's that mental shift of like, okay, now we invest in bringing people in. And so I don't think it's wrong either way. Like, it's not wrong to say I want people local so they can come into the office. And it's not wrong to say, like, I don't know if I want to invest in them coming in. But I think that's an interesting potential change if it's that valuable.
And here's the thing.
Like, it forces a different conversation of like value versus output, you know?
Yeah. And I'm looking at this. That thought is very specific to human, and knowing that oftentimes we're employing people who are recruiters for the first time. And so, from that context, I'm like, gosh, be in office, be around other individuals, hear other recruiters on the phone, etc. But if I look at my team, people who have been recruiting for 15, 20 years, work wherever you're comfortable working at. Work whatever's available to you, you know?
That mentality of if you are new in this, you really should be hip to hip with someone who can watch you,
I feel
share
like
with
that's such
you.
an old school mentality. I just don't know how to get past it.
No, but and I guess that's the challenge, is saying it is an old school mentality.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see as work changes.
I mean, oh my gosh, are we going to have to do like virtual reality? Maybe that's how this happens. Like, hi, you're a new employee. You want to be a recruiter. You're just going to VR with me all day.
I will tell you that I did a virtual conference where, like, it was a LinkedIn conference.
Yeah.
And it was for leaders in the staffing industry. So they sent like the Oculus headset.
Yeah.
And we actually did a virtual like in-person but remote conference, and there is something to be said about that.
Yeah. Okay, we're on to something. I think that we should get one of those companies to let us demo some.
But I gotta say,
I'm jumping the gun here. I'm ready to have fun at this point.
Yeah, so, but what about Spot, the virtual office?
No.
Because to me,
I didn't like that.
I loved that.
I didn't like it.
I loved that because to me, it captured so many of the elements of an in-person experience in a way. It was digital, but everyone was on a level playing field. Yeah. And I think that is, when we think about like that, to me, bridges some of those concerns.
Yeah, you know
but
what?
But adoption and like.
So that is, so I think when I say I don't like Spot, when I would get in there, it'd be, I'd go and just walk right up to our remote people.
What are they selling? Chocolates? What?
It could be because I'm more tenured in my career.
Thank you. You are well aged.
I am well aged. I'm like a fine wine.
Yes, you are.
You're
talking about engaging remote employees.
But I think this goes back to, does your company have the infrastructure appropriately? Granted, we were piloting that system.
Change management.
There we go.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Okay.
If you had a workforce that was entirely remote, and you were given the directive.
Okay.
Dina, your chief operating officer.
Oh, God bless.
The chief executive officer has told you.
Okay.
That in 3 months.
Uh-huh.
No more work from home. How would you do it?
Yeah. So I
You can't say quit.
Peace. Well, I'd want to understand why.
Yep.
What is your thought? What is the business reason for this? Just
Yep.
because you want everybody here, please give me some type of business reason
Yeah.
for it. And then, I mean, it's a good thing we're a recruitment company because I would anticipate a lot of turnover.
Yes.
You know, I mean, gosh, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how I mean, just when we came back to the office 3 days a week, it was really hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It was really
Change
hard.
is really hard.
Change is very hard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, gosh, Hillary, I don't know. What would you do?
I think that I would start with your point, like what's the business case, but then also think through what are the personal cases.
Mm-hmm.
So, because if you tell like an individual contributor that the business case is, or like you're going to have natural intersections with leaders. First of all, like their job is to not care about the overall business case. Their job is to care about their job. Yeah. And if they're not someone who cares about growing their career, they're like, this is my job. I show up, I do it, and then I go home. Then they're not going to care about mentorship opportunities, right? Yeah. Or they may not like if you don't have exposure to what that means, there's no value in that for you. Yeah. So what I would do is I would map out, okay, this is the business case so that you're always grounded in like, this is ultimately a business decision and we know what that is. But then how do you find what are the stories for each of your key audiences? Yeah. And it has to be genuine. Yeah. May not be a great story.
It may not be a story you like, but this is the why.
Or it may not be a story they like. And that's in which case it's like understood, but this is how we run as a business now. And like, we want you to be a part of it, but like, this is how it is. And this is why we think it's going to be good for you and how we're going to support you in that effort. Yeah. Oof. I know. And then you call Dina to get recruiting support.
Yes.
That's what
we're available. 866-517. Sorry, just spitting out my phone number in case anybody needed recruiting support.
Love it.
Yeah.
Tough.
Yeah, that's not a conversation I would want to have.
Yeah.
But
all right.
Yeah.
This is fun.
This was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we returning to the office?
No, we are in the office.
What? Are we returning to hot takes or hot topics?
Yes. Hot takes.
Woo!
Well, the hot take is how a lot of employees have been responding to returning to the office, which brings me to a fun new buzz term called coffee badging, in which people will clock in for the first half of the day, then during their lunch or coffee break, they will badge out and go home. So they're fulfilling halfway those mandates. Is that a okay way to respond, or is this just a sign of how companies did not really work people into the mandates effectively?
So here's Dina. Grounds for termination. I'm sorry if I tell you that your job is in the office 5 days a week.
Did you define 8 hours a day?
Well, so to be clear, I'm going to assume I did. I'm going to assume that all that has been made clear.
Okay.
But so anybody who is gaming a system, that's just not right. Just don't do that.
So here's my thought on it. I got two thoughts on this.
Whoa.
Are you doing it as a leader?
That's none of your business.
That's my point. It is, and again, like if you are an executive,
pot just called the kettle black.
Well, no, and I want to be clear on this. If you are an individual contributor, an entry-level individual contributor, it is expected that you do your job from 8:30 to 5:30 with an hour lunch, right?
Sure. Yeah.
If you're an executive, when's the last time that you worked 8 hours in a day, 5 days a week, and that's it?
Yeah, exactly.
Because the expectation of your job is different.
Yes.
In my personal opinion, if you are expected to be more available because you have a different type of job, then there's some flexibility that comes in. If you know you're going to have to take a late call, you're going to leave the office early because you're going to work late, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's just kind of, in my opinion, kind of by definition of that. But I think that the balance is if you have a team that constantly sees the people in charge coming and going as they please, they don't understand that it's because they've spent all weekend on calls.
Yeah. You're 100%
and
correct.
Working, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's a balance of saying, do I think I think if you're doing it to be deceitful.
That's mine. Yes.
Yeah.
If you're doing it to be deceitful, non-starter.
Yeah.
I don't think I would ever say to somebody, your job is 8 to 5. You need to be here 8 to 5. I mean, I don't care what hours you do your job in, as long as you get it done.
See, but the problem is if you have like our recruiters, the expectation of their job is they're available to the client during business hours.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this before. Marketers are
very different.
very different.
Get it done, you get it done.
I think for me, you need to be clear on what is the expectation for being in the office.
Yeah.
And what is your flexibility for when things are out of the ordinary?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You got a doctor's appointment. You come into the office for the first half of the day, go to the doctor's appointment. Is it okay to go home?
Yeah.
Is it expected that you come back to the office? You're expected, you see what I'm saying? Like, I think, and I feel like coffee badging is where people are thumbing their noses at the letter of the law. Whereas, like, how do companies help people understand the spirit of the law?
There we go. Well said. You're very on point right now.
I don't know if I'm right. I might get some people who are like annoyed.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's okay.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think you summed it up really well. I mean, to me, it's if you are doing it to be deceitful, non-starter.
That's always an issue, no matter what it is.
No matter what it is.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's the line. That being said, I believe that we should be flexible as needed. And
I do, but I'll also say this.
Uh-huh.
The one problem I do have with the concept of like showing up just to like buzz in and then disappear is
how much time did you waste just showing
well,
up?
also that, like, but
Yeah.
I think about the people like me who are rule followers, and I'm going to be there. Like, I'm going to be in the office, and it is a less, like, if I'm sitting in an office all by myself because everybody else has coffee badged,
Yeah.
but I'm there because I'm trying to be a good employee and follow the rules, you kind of screwed me over.
Yeah.
I
You
think
know?
the idea is they are meeting that baseline of they are making an appearance, they are talking with their colleagues, and I think they go home because they are not getting a better explanation of why the mandate exists.
Yeah.
They're not seeing that. And as a non-leader, I think that would be beneficial.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think you hit a really good point, Whit.
The why.
The why, and if you're forcing people to come into an office but not ensuring that the office experience provides value,
Yes, thank you. Good
then
call.
why are you forcing people in the office?
Yeah. You're 100% correct. Yep.
Be clear on the value of the
Yes.
office.
Yeah. I like it.
Here at Human, it's to see us. So,
Available Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
do you not know what days we're in the office?
Hours vary. I do travel a lot for work, guys.
That's why I show up.
All right. That's good.
That's a wrap.
Bye.